everyone, welcome back to our virtual chat program. I'm Gulshan with American Center Tashkent, and I'm very excited to introduce our speaker, a U.S. academic librarian, Fulbright scholar at Samarkand State University, Anne Hedrich. Hi, Anne.
Hi, hello.
Thank you so much for your time. Thanks for joining us and being ready to tell us about sports today.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
So Anne Hedrich is originally from the state of Utah, but she spent almost 6 months here in Uzbekistan. And unfortunately for us, she's leaving soon back to the US.
Me too.
And it's great that we have a chance to catch up with you before you leave. And thank you so much. I know you're very busy now, but you're taking this time to spend with us. And I want to remind everyone, this is a live program. We are streaming live both on our America Center Tashkent Facebook and YouTube pages. So feel free to actively participate by putting your questions and comments in the comment section below this video. And we will address them after the presentation. So again, Anne, thank you so much. And over to you.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I am glad to be here on Chai Chat. I think this is a really great program, and you have so many interesting topics, Gulshan. And so I'm glad that I can add something. I was on this a little while ago too, talking about libraries. So now I get to talk about some of my other favorite things, which are a couple of sports that I play, the sports of curling and ultimate. And I will say that I never thought of myself as a sports person. When I was little, all my siblings were really athletic, and they did really great things. And I felt like I mostly tripped over my own feet a lot. But these sports were welcoming sports, and I learned and grew to love them. And so I like talking about them and sharing information about them. So I'm going to start with curling. Just a minute, let me advance the slide. And so curling is a game played on ice. You can see a picture of it there. It uses stones and they slide on the ice. And I'll explain a little bit more about how it's played in just a little bit. But right now, I will tell you a little bit about the history. It's a pretty old sport. They've figured it's gone back at least to 1511, so it's the 16th century. They found a curling stone that was dated 1511 in Scotland, and that's where it started. And then the oldest curling, or the first curling club, I guess, is Kilsyth Curling Club. Was the first one in the world. People mostly they would play it outside. They'd use flat bottom stones, and they would slide them on the ice. Sometimes they'd try to figure out other things to slide on the ice, like wood or ice-filled tins or something like that. But they would play it on frozen rivers or put water on fields in the winter where it would freeze. And so that made that icy surface that you want to slide the stones across. But back then, there was very little control. The stones were different sizes and shapes, and ice was pretty bumpy a lot and everything. So it was really more luck than any skill that was involved in winning curling back then. And also the time when it started and was really popular in Scotland, especially, was the 16th through the 19th centuries. And it was colder then. So it was just really good conditions all winter, every year, for people to do curling. And so that's how it became popular there. Now it's really most popular, probably, or certainly most developed in Canada. Canadians love curling, and it's an important sport in their country. And I'm guessing there are more players there than anywhere else, although I didn't see that exact number. The first World Championships were in 1959. So curling is starting to get organized, having teams, but somebody taking those teams and making it into a more formal tournament of something they could call a world championship. And what else did I want to say? Oh, but it was one of the first sports that was really interesting to women and girls. So even though they only let men in the first World Championship, it was popular early on with women and girls, and now women and girls are curling a lot. It has a strange Olympic history. It was actually in 1924 they awarded medals for curling, but somehow it wasn't really recognized until much later, and it wasn't until 1998 that curling was officially welcomed into the Olympics and was an official Olympic sport. And now you can play on men's teams, there are women's teams, and then there are co-ed teams called mixed doubles. So how do you play curling? Well, as I said, curling is on ice, and the curling playing field is called a sheet. And it's, let's see, 45 to 46 meters long. So there's a little variability, but it's still long and thin because it's only 4 to 4.5 meters wide. And at each end is a target. It's called the house, but it looks like a target. It's 3 circles that are concentric inside each other. And right in the center, there's a thing, the center is called the button. And what you're trying to do is you're standing on the far end from your house and you're sliding the stones toward it. And you're trying to get your stone as close as possible to the center. And there are 2 teams doing this, 2 teams of 4 people. And each person gets to throw or push 2 stones. So you end up with all of these stones down, 16 stones down there. And the only team that scores points is the one that has the stone that's closest to the center. Okay. The stones are granite, and they come from only 2 places in the world that are official stone quarries that curling will accept. And one is in Scotland, and then also one in Wales. And the stones weigh between, let's do it. Well, between 38 and 44 pounds, or you could say about 17.25 to almost 20 kilograms. So they're really heavy, okay? So even though ice is slippery, those are heavy stones. So the ice is prepared a special way, and you sprinkle water droplets on it. So it's called pebbling it. And those little when the water droplets hit the ice, they freeze, and they make it kind of like the skin of an orange. So it's a little bit of a rough surface. And what it does, well, it's not rough, it's just not super slick. And then there are fewer points of contact because those little droplets are rounded at the top. And that actually reduces friction, and the stones can slide more easily that way. So that's an important part of preparing the ice to make curling happen well. And then those stones, if you can see in the picture there, they have handles on the top. And so you can hold onto that handle as you're pushing the stone. And you can also use it to spin the stone as you release it. So you're pushing and you spin it. And that causes the stone to curl. It doesn't go in a straight path. It curls in the direction of the spin. And that's where the sport got its name. Although I heard it was also called the roaring game somewhere because the stones kind of rumble along. They make kind of a little rumbling, or some people thought a roaring sound. So it's also called that. But mostly it's called curling, and it's named after that curve that the stones can take. So let's see. How do you know when to twist the stone when you're releasing it and which way to twist it? Well, one of the players is called a skip, and that's the captain of the team. And so when that captain stands down by that target, down by the house, and points to the spot that the thrower, the person who's going to push the stone, is to aim for, and also tells which spin to put on it. So that skip can kind of see the situation, and they develop a strategy for getting stones in the best place so that your team can have the one that's closest to the center, including curling those stones around by telling the players to spin it. Now, another thing that's important about curling is that there is sweeping involved. And again, in that picture, you might see a few, they look kind of like sticks. They're called brooms, and they are for sweeping. And you sweep the stones in front of the ice, and on the ice in front of the stone as it's moving along. And that sweeping helps control where the stone goes too. If you sweep it, you're melting the ice just a little bit, especially if you're sweeping very hard, and you can get quite a workout doing this. You can get, I mean, people get worried about getting cold because you're on ice or something, but if you're sweeping, boy, you stay warm, especially if you have to sweep a lot. You're getting quite warm, but you're sweeping and you're melting that ice so that the stone can move more quickly. So maybe somebody didn't push it quite as hard as they needed to. And so the sweepers sweep, there are two sweepers, and so they're sweeping in front of the stone to help it advance. And also the curl doesn't start happening really until the stone slows down. So sometimes they want the stone to go a little further, and then they want the curl to take, or maybe they'll stop sweeping earlier because they want the curl to start happening earlier. So it's pretty amazing that you think of these heavy stones and you can actually control really well where they go. Good players can do that really well. So those are the main things. Some people, the good curlers, the competitive curlers also have some special shoes that they use. And one of the shoes has a slippery bottom, and they can use that to slide along the ice more easily. And also when you're pushing off, when you're first pushing that stone, you're pushing against something called a hack that's set in the ice. It's just like a little ridge that you can push against. And you're in this awkward position that you'll see in some pictures I'll show in a little bit. And you need one of your shoes to slide along. So if you don't have those fancy shoes, there are just kind of flat, shoe-shaped flat things that are slippery on the bottom that people like me use. I don't have the special shoes. You don't need them. But the people, they are pretty handy to have if you really get into curling. So I mentioned that you score, only the team scores that gets the stone that's close to the house. I mean, to the center of the house. And you might score more than 1 point if you have like 2 of your stones or rocks closer to the center than any of the other team's closest stones. Okay. So, and usually 1 or 2 or 3, I think, are pretty typical scores that a team might get. Not usually more, but I guess technically you could get 8 because maybe all of your 8 stones on your team went inside, were in the house, and none of your opponent's stones were in there, and that would be a very uneven game. I don't think I've ever heard of that happening, but I suppose it could. So each time you're pushing those stones down, that's called an end. And then once you finish that, determine who has won that end. Then you just set up, and you start moving in the other direction. You stay down there, and then you're starting to push the stones in the other direction. The team that scored on an end goes second when you start a new end, when you start a new run down the sheet, because it gives, then they gain a little bit of advantage, maybe to make it a little bit more even. And sometimes teams, that's called the hammer, if you get the last throw, and you can see that could be an advantage to have the very last throw. And sometimes teams will actually choose not to score. They'll let the other team score because they really want to keep the hammer, because they think maybe on another end we'll be able to do a lot better and we'll pass up the other team. Let me see. I think that is most of it. Oh, you can't touch the stones with the broom or with your feet or anything. That's called burning a stone, and that means the stone is just removed from play. So I think those are most of the rules. And actually, Gulshan, is there anything that just sounds really unclear that it sounds like I might have forgotten?
It sounded very clear to me. Let's see if our viewers will have some questions maybe later.
Yeah. And I'm going to be talking about it more, but just in case there's something really glaring or that is really confusing, I'd rather answer it now.
Yeah, so please do ask your questions in the comment section, and we'll get to them.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. Okay. So What is so cool about curling? Well, first of all, I think it's really neat that there are different kinds of teams. So you can have men's teams, you can have women's teams, or you can have co-ed teams. And there's not that many sports that men and women can play together. It seems like we're always separated into different sports. And you can have kids on your team. My first year I curled, my daughter Emmon was 10, and she played with our team a little bit. It was pretty hard for her. She wasn't very big, but you can do that. You can have all kinds of players. And then usually there's 4 people in a team, but this new thing that is mixed doubles, it's 1 man and 1 woman on a team. And that's pretty crazy because usually you have 1 person pushing the stone or throwing it, and then the two people sweeping and the 1 person to skip down at the other end. So it takes 4 people usually to curl, but the mixed doubles, you only have 2 people. So the person pushing the stone also has to scramble and get up and get ahead of it and sweep it. And maybe the other person is coming from the house to help sweep it. So it puts a different dynamic on it. That's pretty interesting. Curling tournaments are called Bonspiels, and they happen usually over a weekend. Usually there are a couple days, and I've only been to a couple, but they try to set it up so teams are coming, at least from my experience, from different places, different states, pretty far away. And so they try to make it fun. Both we're curling all day, both days, or watching curling if we have a bye or a weight game, or they're getting to the championship, the final games, where most of the teams are watching at that point to see who will win, because there's only the 2 top teams at the end of the tournament. But they also have like a party at night, something for you to do. And I think people really, there's a real community of curling, and so they're always excited to see each other. This is the time they see each other, when they have another tournament, and they show up. And sometimes the teams get kind of silly. Their outfits can be kind of crazy. Usually it doesn't happen in competitive curling, like Olympic level stuff, except the Norwegian team. Everybody's watching to see what their pants are going to look like, or their outfits, because the Norwegians seem to do some crazy stuff even in the Olympics. But anyway, so it's fun to curl in a league. Maybe your city will have a curling league and your team plays once a week, but you can also travel to other places and go to these Bonspiels, and that's pretty fun. Oh, I know, I was supposed to advance my slide. Just a second. I am going to do that because, okay, there you can see on the top left what the house or the target looks like, and that's actually the symbol for my team. We are the Cache Valley Stone Society, but you can see what that target looks like from there. But the next thing I was going to mention about what's cool about curling is scoring. It's very interesting, and I don't know if you can see it very well on the scoreboard, but it's just a completely different kind of scoreboard. It's called a club scoreboard, and it was developed because it uses less numbers, but I think it's just not quite big enough to see. But there are the 8 or 10 ends that are played in a game between 2 teams or in a tournament. And the numbers down, you look at it and you're like, I can't figure out how they decided. If we can, I don't know if I can zoom in on this, but you can see that the score of this particular game, oh, and there I am hiding behind the scoreboard too. And that's my team member standing next to it. But we won that game. We're the red team, and we won that game 9-5. And if you can figure out that scoreboard, good job. Sometimes I still get mixed up, but it makes so much sense once you get it. It makes so much sense. Another thing that I hinted at already is just that curling culture is really fun. Curlers tend not to take themselves too seriously. They just love curling and they want to have fun. They want to win and they want to curl well, but they just think it's great to be together and doing this. And especially amateurs, there are really goofy team names. I was on a team called Bangers and Mash, because when stones hit each other, there's this kind of bang sound. And sometimes when you're throwing a stone down there, it will hit another one and push it out of the way, which sometimes you're trying to do. And then the latest team I'm on is called Total Sheet Show. So there are plays on words in that are terms in curling, like the sheet, the ice sheet, or curl. Maybe there's a team called Curl Up and Die or something. I mean, people get very goofy and silly with it, and it's kind of fun. And then an important part of curling culture is good sportsmanship. I think sportspersonship. Anyway, people support good play, and they start games by shaking hands and saying "good curling." And every email I ever get from anybody with curling always says "good curling" at the end of it. But they also might say, "Have a pleasant game." And this is your opponent, right? That you're shaking hands with your opponent and saying things like this. Often the winning team buys the losing team drinks. And there's this thing called conceding a game, which means before it's over, you say, "Hey, we're not going to win." And in situations where teams just know they won't win, there's just no hope of it, they may just shake hands with the other team and say, you won, good job. And that's actually considered an honorable thing to do, which I think is interesting. But I guess some of the reasoning behind that is they can get to the socializing after the curling, because usually people hang out together and talk afterwards. And anything negative is not tolerated. Okay, so if you're you would never cheer for a team doing a bad shot or making a mistake or something like that. It's just absolutely not tolerated. So curlers really want to be supportive of each other, and they really love their sport. So there's something called the spirit of curling, and that's important to curlers. So I think I have, let's see, I think I have to stop sharing, and then I have a picture of some curling. Is that right, Gulshan? I need to stop sharing and choose a different. Or can you see this? Excuse me, because I'm forgetting.
Yes, you need to stop sharing and share another screen.
Right. Okay, let me come back and share again. And these will be some pictures of curling, so you can see a little bit more about what it looks like. I think it was this one. No. Sorry, I thought I had it right. Wait, let's see if this is it. No, that's not it. That's not it. My apologies. I'll try once more. I've got them all lined up, so it looks to me like it's obvious which one I'm choosing. Hold on.
No worries.
QE 2021. Let's try that. Here we go. Okay. So can you see pictures of curling now?
Yes.
Okay, so you can see this is just from the World Curling Federation's website, and this is their gallery of pictures that they're sharing to show people what curling looks like. So you can see many people sweeping right in the house to try to bring a stone in to maybe get it closer to the center or push another stone out of the way. You see a lot of people watching and holding their brooms. You can see examples here of just the good sportspersonship that is shown in there. And again, you can see how people are leaning into the sweeping. I mean, it can be quite vigorous. And one of the things I like about curling is it's the stones move so slowly, pretty slowly. You're pushing them, it's heavy. You want to be really precise in your aim. You don't want to throw it too hard. So most of them just kind of rumble down the sheet. And meanwhile, the skip is directing the sweepers and is yelling, "Sweep, sweep, sweep." And the sweepers are yelling back, "Weight's heavy." And they're kind of talking back and forth. And what should we do? And there's just all this yelling and excitement and frantic sweeping. Meanwhile, the stone is just going very slowly down the thing. And then it finally gets to the house. So this is what curling looks like in action. And you can look at some of these websites, and the World Curling Federation, and I also have USA Curling as links at the end of this slideshow that you can copy down the You can copy down the URLs if you want to, and you can look more, or you can just do a Google search for, you can also just do a Google search for stuff, and you can see lots of pictures. So now I'm going back to my slideshow. Do you have any questions about curling? Because I think at this point I am going to switch over to Ultimate. Does anything come in?
There are no questions so far.
Okay.
Someone is asking if it's muted, but I checked and looks like we're not. So Farouk, please check your audio. We are not muted.
Okay. Okay. And now you can see the Ultimate screen. Okay. So now we're switching over to a different sport called Ultimate Frisbee. And this is a field sport. And I'll tell you a little bit about its history. Whereas curling is really old, Ultimate is pretty new. It just recently celebrated its 50th anniversary. So it's really credited as starting in 1968. There was a high school team in Maplewood, New Jersey, Columbia High School, and they are the ones who are credited with playing the first game of Ultimate and inventing the game. Before that, people were throwing frisbees or flat things like cake pans and things like that, and something that might resemble Ultimate. The big thing for Ultimate is the disc, which is often called a frisbee, and that's why Ultimate was originally called Ultimate Frisbee. But frisbee is also a brand name, like you'd say, maybe some people say Kleenex, but they mean tissue because Kleenex is a particular brand. So now we just call them discs, and the sport is just called Ultimate. But it involves throwing that flat, that frisbee-like object, the disc, and this is a disc here. Oops, trying to figure out how to, there. So you're throwing this in the sport, and that's what's important. So people were throwing stuff like that before, but then in 1968, the actual game with all the rules and the setup and everything was invented. And then in 1979, there was a national organization, the Ultimate Players Association, formed in the United States, and they had their first world championship, which was 5 teams. Okay, so pretty small world championship. But then things just kept growing. In 1981, so only a couple years later, they added a women's division. Then they added a college division in 1984. In 1985, worldwide, things got they got into it because the World Flying Disc Federation was formed, and that includes Ultimate and other disc sports like guts or disc golf, and there's a couple other ones too. So they cover all of those, but it includes Ultimate. And then in 1988, back to the Ultimate Players Association in the U.S., they formed juniors, so people under 18, so that they could play with people more their own age. And then in 1998, they make a mixed division. So this is another sport now that it's co-ed. It can be co-ed. You can have an all-men's team, you can have an all-women's team, but you can have mixed men and women's teams also. And then younger people's teams and college teams. In 2001, Ultimate was admitted to the World Games. And then soon after that, it started ESPN, the sports channel started covering it. And just recently in the teens, the World Olympic committees are starting to recognize Ultimate, and it looks like Ultimate might be, I think it's an exhibition sport or something called in 2028. So it's becoming more known. It's just growing rapidly. There's a lot of people that really like it. I read somewhere, I think maybe 3 million people in the United States play it. And most of the people that are playing Ultimate aren't in these international competitions or national or anything. They're just, it's a fun, easy game, kind of like football or soccer, as we say in America, that, you know, it's not too hard. A bunch of friends can just get together and play. So it's that kind of a game. And there are a few professional sports leagues, at least in the United States, and one for men and one for women. And they have slightly different rules. But most people that are playing are people that are just doing it because it's fun. So Ultimate is a team sport. There's 7 players on a team. You're playing on a field. The field is, let's see, I wrote it down because I can never remember. It's 64 meters long, and then has 2 18-meter end zones. So it's 100 meters total from end to end, and then it's 37 meters wide. It's a non-contact sport, so you're not supposed to be bumping into people or running into people, and it happens. There's occasional contact, but the idea is that you're not to do that, and that's different from football or soccer, because there you're kind of bumping and using your body to kind of get position and jostling and stuff. And in ultimate, you're not supposed to be touching people. And what you want to do is to score a goal in the end zone, and that's like American football, where the ends of the field are a place for scoring. Not just a net like in soccer or world football, but the whole end zone is a place where somebody catches a disc there, you've scored a goal. And the way you move the disc down the field is by passing it. Okay, so it's all passing. As soon as somebody has passed the disc to you, you catch it, you can't run anymore. You've got to stop, and then you'll pass it to somebody else. And then the idea is your team will line up, and on the opposite end of the field, the other team will line up in an end zone, and the defensive team will throw the disc, a long pull, it's called, long throw to the other team, and then that's the offensive team, and they start throwing to each other and working their way up the field, and they're trying to get to that end zone. Anytime there's a turnover, an incomplete pass, it is a turnover. So if the pass isn't caught, or if the disc goes out of bounds, or if somebody intercepts it, like the other team gets it, or somebody just knocks it down, then it is a turnover, and the team that was the offensive team is instantly the defensive team, and the other team that was the defensive team is now offense, and they pick up the disc and they start working, and it's just an immediate turnover. It happens very quickly. There's kind of minimal equipment required. You need a field, you need a good area. People do play on pavement and things, but it really works a lot better on grass. And then you need your disc. You don't, players that really get into it will have cleats, the shoes with the pokey out bits on the bottom, so that they can dig into the grass and have more control and turn quickly and things. But those aren't required. In fact, a lot of people seem to play in bare feet even. And there's also beach ultimate, and so people are playing in the sand. So you don't need what you need is a disc, and you need a big space that's kind of safe without things sticking up. Like some of the fields here, I've seen the green areas have those sprinklers sticking up, and that wouldn't be safe. So you need a big area, big enough area for the field. That is pretty clear. So once a point is over, a team has scored in the end zone, that team just stays there holding onto the disc, and the other team walks to the other end of the field, and that team that just scored will then pull or throw to the other team, and then they're on defense. And so you're switching ends, kind of like hurling. You're switching directions after each section of the game, and in ultimate, it's after each point. Okay, now something that's important about ultimate, and actually I think I didn't quite mention it, it's true in curling too, there aren't referees. Both of those sports are self-officiating. And so players are on their honor to say if they've done something wrong. Like back to curling, if you burned a stone, remember, you shouldn't touch it with your stick or your broom or your feet or anything. If you've touched a stone, you're expected to say that, and that stone is taken out. But the same thing is for ultimate. If you've done something wrong, you are expected to call it. Or if you see somebody else did something wrong, they'll call it, and then you say, "Oh yeah, I did it," and you agree. Or you say, "No, I don't think it did." And the rules are built to tell you whether to tell what happens. Basically, if somebody says you did something wrong, you hit my arm when I was trying to throw, and that's a foul, and the other person says, yes, I did. Okay, then the person, the thrower, just gets the disc back again and play continues from there. If the person said, no, I didn't hit your arm, you just dropped, you just did a weird throw and I didn't affect your throw at all, then they'll just take the game back to the point before there was a disagreement about what happened, and then play picks up again right away. And so it just keeps moving. But the players are on their honor to play well, play fair. And in Ultimate, there's something that's very important called spirit of the game. And so the idea is that respect for other players, following the rules, and the joy of play is the most important thing. Yes, you want to be competitive, and they're very competitive sometimes, but still what's the most important is keeping that spirit. So that's, I think, in a nutshell, most of the basic stuff for playing. Oh, I know, I missed one thing. Usually when a team is throwing it at the field, usually there's one person, like if you're an offensive player, you have probably one defender that's kind of following you and sticking with you. And when you have the disc, like I've just caught the disc, my defender person is standing in front of me and trying to make it a little difficult for me to throw it. But they can't get too close. And I get 10 seconds to throw it. And that person is counting to 10 to make sure that I throw it in those 10 seconds. So that's one thing that you'll often see in Ultimate, is why people are paired up like that. There's a zone defense that's used sometimes as well. So what's so special about Ultimate? Well, I think especially that spirit of the game, but there's a lot of other cool things about Ultimate too. And I guess I skipped over. I'll come back here to the leagues and competitions. So in Ultimate, there are a lot of leagues. Cities will create leagues. Schools, maybe a group of schools or something, will create leagues where they'll just have people come together and form a bunch of teams. And then they'll just play each other maybe for 10 weeks or something like that, a game each week. Those are really common. And then there are also competitions or tournaments where you might go to another city and it's just a weekend and you'll play games all day Saturday, and US Saturday's a weekend day too. And then all day Sunday. If it's a really big tournament, you might be playing games on Friday too. I went to a tournament that had 100 teams in it. I think we played for 4 days, parts of 4 days, because there were so many teams. It was just a really big tournament. But anyway, the tournaments are pretty fun. You play a lot. Boy, you're running a lot. You're really tired. And so they again, similar to curling, they try to make the whole weekend fun for the teams to come. So there's always a party on Saturday night, and it usually involves a big dinner, and everybody's starving because you've been running all day. And you will go to this party, get your dinner, and then they have music and dancing until late in the night. And often there's a welcoming party on Friday night, and a lot of times teams will provide places for people to stay. Other players would rather stay in hotels, but they just try to make it a kind of a whole experience. So you get all the fun of playing, but you get the fun of the social aspect of it too. So tournaments are pretty fun. And then sometimes they'll have hat tournaments where you just say, hey, I'm a woman and this is how old I am, and I am an intermediate player. And then they form teams that are somewhat equal based on those characteristics. So you don't know who you're going to be playing with until after they've formed the teams. And that's pretty fun. Those are fun. They're called hat tournaments also. And I'm going to stop sharing this. No, wait, I'm going to advance my slide. Hold on. I don't have to stop sharing. Okay. So what's hot about Ultimate? What's cool about curling? What's hot about Ultimate? Okay. Again, this is something where there's all kinds of teams. Okay. We have those little younger kids teams and the college teams. The college is really big. There's a lot of players in that. There are men's teams, women's teams, and the co-ed teams. And it's really fun to be able to play with men and women on the same team. And what they do is they just make sure it's a match. So they'll say, okay, there must be at least 2 women on the field on your team for each point, for example, or maybe 3. The 2 teams decide ahead of time, or the tournament will set the rules for that. And it's really cool because that means you are having all these different kinds of players, maybe different levels, different skills, different ages. There's masters tournaments too, or you can have masters people just playing in your team, and you figure out how to put it together. Your team figures out how to put it together to use everybody's best abilities and their strengths and to create the best team that you can. And it's just a really positive thing that everybody really supports each other. And I like that about Ultimate, that it's so flexible with those different kinds of teams. The atmosphere for Ultimate has been described as free-spirited and goofy, and it often is. I mean, Ultimate players just get quite silly. They like doing crazy outfits sometimes, especially for different hat tournaments. Well, like one story. Well, they're kind of irreverent and sometimes nonconformist. So one of the first national championships, I think somebody, maybe it was, I can't remember why, but somebody said, well, we should have numbers on the teams, on the players, so we can tell which player is which if we're reporting this. Saying, oh yes, number 3 just did a great throw or something like that. And but one of the teams that came to that showed up and everybody had the number 3 on their shirt. So there's like, we're not gonna follow these rules. We don't like these rules. So they just get kind of silly and have a lot of fun. They're serious about playing, but they're serious about having fun too. Team names in Ultimate are very creative. They're just all over the place. They're often plays on words. They like to poke fun at things. I've been on a team called Nude, which was Nude, the word nude, and it's Northern Utah Disc Exhibitionists. So we just thought that was a fun name. Not that, well, we had skin-colored shirts, but it was just because of the fun of the name. Or there is a masters team, like older players, called Vitamin I. And, I can stand, some people joke that ibuprofen is really important. Is you get really sore or you get older or something. And so they call it Vitamin I, like I need my Vitamin I to play. And so that was the name of the whole team. There's Glow, the glorious ladies of disc. No, I've just forgotten what it is and I didn't write it out. Well, how about Donald Dump? So a dump is a kind of a throw, a particular throw in Ultimate. Or Game of, so that was making a play on words on our last president's name, Game of Throws, and so on. So, and then they had really awesome discs. I've got a picture of that, the one that I've got here. Those are really, each tournament might have a disc, each team might have a disc. Sometimes they're just beautiful. You can have them for collection. You can go to a tournament and buy one. Say, I was at this tournament and I got this beautiful disc. And then there's no referees. Spirit of the game is super important. And it's a really welcoming atmosphere. They say people come for the sport because it's very athletic, but they stay for the community that's formed. And I played for years, and I would go on a trip for work, and I'd look up who's playing Ultimate in this town that I'm going to a conference for, and I'd find Ultimate players and just jump in and play with them, and we're just instant friends. And then I will stop sharing and show you just a few pictures of Ultimate also. And okay, so this is from the Ultimate, USA Ultimate, the American team organization. And you can see some pictures. This is Ultimate. People are running around the field. People get pretty excited. There are some amazing athletic things that happen. Like this guy is flying through the air to catch this disc. And then they have some nice simple rules on here. What makes Ultimate so great? They're saying, well, the layout. It's called a layout. When you're running as fast as you can, you're not going to get to that disc. And you just got to push off and just launch yourself into the air. And that's the only way you're going to catch it. And these are videos. And if you go to this page, which is usaultimate.org, you'll see they have videos of this. And then the huck, the very long throw, is always quite exciting. And then people jumping up in the air to catch a really high throw. are quite exciting. And then there's something called this video called Spirit of the Game, and I'm just going to play just a tiny bit of it, and you can come back and see the rest of it later. And I'm just going to jump forward so you can just see some of the spirit that exhibited pretty typically in games. And I wanted to start right about, you're getting to see it sort of anyway, but here we go, right here. So, oops. What happens? She gets up and they're like, cool. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing that now and come back. And that's Ultimate's is really fun to watch. Curling's pretty fun to watch too, but it's especially fun if you understand the rules. Then it gets very interesting. And they're both way fun to play. And people welcome you into the sport because not as many people know about it. And they're always happy to have more people playing. And they don't care if you're not good at first, which is how I got into it as a non-athletic person. And neither of them seem to be really present very much in Uzbekistan, but I know I think there's some Ultimate in Tashkent, and I heard of Americans coming and teaching people to play Ultimate, so maybe it will pick up here. And then you have ice sheets. You just need your ice centers for curling to happen, so maybe that will happen too. And that could be one of those quicker ways into the Olympics if you could form a curling team, and maybe you could get in there. Who knows? So that's pretty much it. Did any questions come in now, Gulshan?
Thank you so much. And we do have the question from Farooq Musa Muhamedov. He's asking, do you have any information if there is any way to learn and train curling in Uzbekistan or Ultimate?
Yeah, if you go to, my last page, maybe I will share again. If you go to some of these organizations' websites, you will see they have training things, and so they'll teach you right there on their website. And I noticed that both of the sports, the international ones, there, both of those international organizations are trying to develop it in other places in the world. And I think there's even like maybe some grants and stuff like that. So I didn't look into it very much, but if you go to the worldcurling.org and the WFDF, that sport, WFDF, World Flying Disc Federation. So those two middle links that are in there, and they're not too long. You can copy those down. Then you can read about developing it here.
Yeah, thank you. And we don't know where Farooq is from, but just as you mentioned, and our teaching English assistants do Ultimate classes, like trainings. Hannah Roswell did one. If you're in Fergana, you can join once she's back. I guess she was in Fergana State University.
Okay. Yeah. They're. I think ask around and look on those websites and look for people coming from the United States. Maybe they know a little bit about Ultimate.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Another question. Looks like curling is a strategic sport. Are there any ways to study the strategy?
Yeah, I think, again, looking at those websites, I know they did talk a bit about strategy. And you're right, it is a strategic sport. You can, because you can make your throws so precise. And there are things where you can set up guards in front of the house. And yeah, there's a lot to it, which is part of the fun of it too. I mean, it's a physical sport, but it's a real mental sport. And those websites will talk about that and lead you to other resources. I think there are probably books and things too, but I think just a search on the web will get you some good information about strategies for curling.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. If you were to choose which sport to play, what would you choose, curling or ultimate?
Oh no, that's a hard choice. Gosh. I think if I really had to choose, I'd probably stick with ultimate because it doesn't need as much equipment. Like if I'm not near an ice rink, it's hard to curl. I'm lucky enough to live near one. But on the other hand, I've been playing ultimate for a long time, and now I'm getting so old and slow. It's like, I know I should be way down the field there, but I just can't get there fast enough. So sometimes that's a little frustrating, but that's the cool part when you play with other people who have been playing, other older people or something with ultimate. So many people are playing, you could probably usually find somebody to play with. So I guess I'd have to pick ultimate, but that's a pretty hard question.
Okay. How long does it take to become a good curler?
I don't know.
Or curling
I'm frozen. I feel like I'm not frozen.
We can hear you.
Maybe Gulshan is.
And did you hear the question?
There?
And can you hear me?
I'm not hearing anything consistent.
Can you hear us?
Now I can hear you.
Okay, good. So the question was, how long will it take to become a good curling athlete?
Oh, I think it depends. It's different for different people. Some people just catch on to these things really quickly, and you just have to get used to that really awkward position that you get into. I can't remember if any of the pictures showed it, but when you're pushing off of that hack to push the stone, it looks very graceful if you do it right, but it takes a little while to get that down. But I don't know. I've seen some people who have done it just like our team's season is late February to late April. So we curl about 2 months a year. And I've seen people who have done that for 1 or 2 years, and they've really gotten good quite quickly. And they're like finding everything out they could and asking everybody questions and how do I do this and practicing as much as they could. So I think you can learn it pretty quickly. And then there are people like me that just takes a long time. But as long as I'm having fun, that's all right.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. And I think this will be probably the last question if we don't get any. What are your tips to someone who just starting learning to play ultimate?
I think that my tips would be to not be discouraged too quickly, because sometimes the throws, especially the backhand throws people usually have, there's a forehand throw, kind of like a forehand in tennis, or it's called a flick, and that's a more difficult throw, and people get frustrated sometimes when they can't do that as much. But just keep practicing, and it will come to you. And don't get discouraged. Just keep trying, and just don't expect anything too soon. And then I would say it won't be that long. It'll just seem like long while you're trying to get some of those basic skills down. But you can just concentrate on running hard, catching. Concentrate on running hard, concentrate on catching, concentrate on other things as you keep working on that. And things will start coming to you, and then it starts getting really fun. You don't need to be a super good player to have it be fun. Just want to get some of those basic skills down a little bit.
Yeah. I just can't wait when we start this.
And make it a social thing,
Here.
Pardon?
I can't wait when we start our Frisbee club, ultimate club here in ACT.
Yeah. And I'd say, watch some of those videos. They're really inspiring, and see how much fun people have and make it fun. Because it can be really fun. And don't worry if you drop it. If you drop the frisbee and it's a turnover, don't worry about it. Just keep concentrating on having it be fun, and it will be. It's a really good sport, and you get in shape and you don't even know it because you're like, oh, I got to get over there to get to that. The throw is right there. I've got to run hard, and you forget how good a shape you're getting in pretty fast. And actually, when you're not very good, you get in better shape or right away because it's turning over so much and you're just running back and forth a lot, and it's so there's that advantage too.
Okay, I don't see any more questions from our viewers. And thank you so much. It was so interesting to learn about the sports that we almost don't have here in Uzbekistan, and I hope we'll start developing them here thanks to you. And
well, if I get maybe it helped a little bit. I hope you do, because they are fun. I hope everybody gets a chance to try them.
Yes. Also, I want to thank and you and also your daughter Eman for being a part of our programming, both here and in American Kona Karshi. Thanks so much, and we hope to see you in Uzbekistan back and interacting with our viewers and with our people in person, probably here in ACT in future.
I'll come play Ultimate, and I'll come and curl with you.
Yes. All right. Thanks so much, and have a good afternoon. See you soon.
Thanks, you too. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.